Thanks for your patience this afternoon. We are having problems with our live stream, so we will record this committee and then later post it. And then that will be opening statements. So welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council's Policy and Resources Committee. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for broadcast, available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record council meetings to fulfil a public task obligation and to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected through the process will be retained in accordance with the council's published policies available through the council's website. Members of the council are reminded that they should follow the council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So welcome colleagues to today's meeting. Just before we begin, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge one of our own here, Alan Buckram. This is Alan's last Policy and Resources Committee. He has been in the council, I believe, for around 40 years, and 20 of those he served in various capacities as a senior officer, including our Chief Financial Officer. So Alan, your wisdom, your candour, your wit has always been very much appreciated, and you will be missed at this council. I know that you hate things like this, but we just want to make sure that you feel particularly loved before you go. You will be missed. So we'll move on to item 1 of our agenda, which is apologies, substitutions and declarations of interest.
Convener, we have apologies from Councillor Robertson. So we'll move to a roll call. The following councillors indicate if they're present at the meeting. Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Curley.
In chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
Present chamber.
Councillor McCormick.
Present remotely.
Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
I'm sorry.
Councillor Crowell.
I know you Bob, I do apologise. I'd like to declare a connection in relation to agenda item 10. It talks about for Glasgow 250 celebrations. It mentions for Glasgow 10K. I want to organise for Glasgow 10K. I just mentioned it's a connection. I don't think I need to recuse myself at the proper time. Really.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Similarly to Councillor Curley, I would like to declare an interest in agenda item number 10. I work for Historic Environment Scotland, and obviously part of the discussion is around some stuff around Newark Castle. But similarly to Chris, I don't feel like I need to recuse myself for this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Law. I don't see anybody else's lights on. So we'll move on to agenda item number 2. It's our Policy and Resources General Fund Revenue Budget Update, and Angela will be taking us through.
Thank you, Convener. This is the usual revenue budget projected outturn report for 24-25. It's a listed position. As usual, we have included the committee position, which is currently shown at 417,000 underspent, which is an improvement since the last report that came out, and that is mainly due to the inflation contingencies. We also have provided an update on the earmarked reserves, common goods. You can find in the appendices an update on the workstream position, and also the general fund position and the reserves position. There is an improvement on the general fund position at the total number spent for 137,000. You can see that on Appendix 6, which has been an improvement since the last report, mainly based to the inflation contingency review that we undertook. And also that means that the general fund reserves position is now reporting 5.845 million, which is 1.845 over the £4 million position. You can see that on Appendix 8. And just to highlight that the decisions were taken as part of the budget process on the 6th of March to utilise those reserves. That's a good question.
Thank you, Angela. The board have questions? Okay, no questions. Everybody happy to read the recommendations?
Agreed.
Perfect. Item number 3, the capital budget and council 24-28 capital programme. I believe you'll take us through that.
Thank you, Vera. Yes, similar to the last report, this is the standard capital report for the committee. 1.3, we give you the position on the committee's programme itself, and that over the 4 years that's anticipated spent on budget. Within the year, we're now expecting some slippage, so we're spending 590 against the 668. That's not actual slippage in terms of the capital spend, but the contingency element is in there, hasn't been fully allocated, and that'll be carried forward into the next year. At 1.4, we give the overall position, so we've got a small net slippage of 129,000. I would just remind everyone that's quite significant slippage in the health and social care side, mainly to the community hub, and that's offset by advancement in the other committees. And members are aware that the community hub is now on site and progressing well, so we shouldn't expect to see that in future years. That should come back on target. In terms of the overall deficit, you can see it's 1.89 million. That is 2.28%, which is well within the 5% tolerance. But I would remind members that this is a 4-year programme at the moment. So once the year ends out the way, that will compare down to a 3-year programme. So that 5% limit shrinks by the 1 year. And also, just at 1.5, would remind you that we've built in the grant allocations per the latest settlement, but we haven't at this stage built in all the budget decisions taken on the 6th of March, in particular the addition to the contingency isn't in there. So when you bring the reduction in years and also the extra £1 billion in, it will bring us to just below the 5% limit. That's all I can say at the moment. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Anybody got any questions on this item? No? Okay, members are reminded to accept the recommendations.
Agreed.
Thank you. We know that item number 4, the corporate policy reports update, Deputy March, Morna.
Thank you, good afternoon. This report covers 5 aspects. Firstly, we have the review of strategic planning performance management framework. The report details some survey work that was undertaken and some actions that the CMT have identified in relation to that. Excuse me. The second theme is around the progress report of the Best Valley Improvement Plan, with more detail available in Appendix 1. Third, completion needs assessment is available on our website by the link provided at paragraph 314, and we plan to arrange a briefing session for the Alliance Board as well as elected members and senior managers for more detailed discussion about the welfare provisions in that report. There is updating the local benchmarking framework information available on the LGBF link, and we'll bring a more detailed report next meeting of the committee. And the final section is around the BE, BGD 80th anniversary commemorations, and you see a section in detail in the current plans. I'll take questions, thank you.
Thank you, Morna. Any colleagues got questions? That's Moran.
Thanks, Kimia. No, just on the VEVG's anniversary. I thought the review were underwhelming. I'm not doing it with personal. I just thought we've been doing a lot more what we're doing. And had discussion the way for the whole delegate service and the port in Europe, similar went with that for Glasgow for Fiji. I mean, if any further orders, have we got any definite plans to have services in the towns? But as I say, I'm not blaming anyone here. I just think it's a wee bit underwhelming considering the anniversary is still be very long to all people here in Inverclyde.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. It is an important anniversary, and I'll bring Morna back into
At least what's
either one.
I want to thank staff if that's what
Okay,
it
you
is.
have to start with Morna.
So I think that one of the issues in relation to is we have a very small communication and events team, and we have Glasgow 250 and the Guruk Highland Games and the working, and we've got other initiatives that were going on which are taking up an inordinate amount of time. I've got to say that the team have known about the VEs since before December, and there has been some planning, but there is literally no capacity in our team to do anything else other than we've got and we've got and that we've got here. And so I can understand Councillor Moran's disappointment, but actually the team are doing a sterling job in difficult circumstances, trying to deliver the Glasgow 250 and the Guruk Highland Games, and we don't have any capacity to do anything else. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Peter. Since the report was written, there are a couple of updates, and maybe Rhoda could come in. I think she's on the call online and just give a couple of updates. Thank you.
Okay, Rhoda, do you have an update for us?
Yes, thanks through you, Convener. Since the update was drafted, we have had a number of positive meetings with the Inverclyde Veteran Network, and they're looking to take forward an event with the lighting of the beacon at Lyle Hill themselves. We'll be supporting that in terms of the kind of arrangements that need to be put in place and the infrastructure and the safety, but they'll be looking to lead on that event with our support. In addition to that, we've also had the call out going out today, looking for personal stories and family members coming forward with content that can be used in the video content that we're hoping to use as part of the video footage within the church services. The Veterans Network themselves are also looking to extend their options by having an additional service at the Lyle Kirk in the evening, so that will be the mix as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And can I confirm, did you say that was Lyle Kirk or Lyle Park Kirk? Sorry.
Lyle.
Lyle Kirk, thank you. Councillor Brooks, do you want to come in?
Can I update the update?
You can update the update, yes.
As of this morning, 11 AM, the Lyle Kirk will not proceed. Okay, so the official act of worship will be 11 AM on the 8th of May at Old Gourock in Ashton, which is the Gourock Parish Church, if that's the right phrase, to ensure that it's obviously cross-denomination, etc., etc. So the focus for the council, I understand, will be on the 11 AM on the 8th of May. The Veterans Network are working hand in glove with the local reverend and obviously our team to ensure that service is appropriate. And as much as I can understand Councillor Mann's context, we're looking to do as much as we can to make that service work, whether it's with young people, or whether it's with cadets, or whatever shape, and the veterans. So that will be the main focus. And I would like to thank officers for the beacon being lit throughout the UK. The beacons will light up, and at one stage it was challenging for us, the council, to be able to support that. So thank you for officers who have now been able to find the appropriate level of support that will now take part in the UK-wide beacon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brooks. So, 8th of January, 8th of May at 11 AM.
Can I just go back? Look, I really do appreciate the work the officers are doing, but most of us received an email from the veterans asking what we're doing. At that point in time, there wasn't a lot happening, so we moved on to options then. But I think it's important that we do show it, we do support them, and if we try to do it. And this is a very special commemorative day. So thanks everyone who helped to make it something we can remember.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moran, and thank you for the update. So 8th of May at 11 AM. Councillor Powley?
Thank you. Just a few things, obviously, as a very important anniversary. I think I can remember the 40th anniversaries going through at the time, and then the 50th. So yes, we're all getting a bit older, and that's with the veterans. I'm just wondering, it might not be appropriate, but obviously we've talked about the veterans, but are there any veterans still in Inverclyde from the Second World War? Are they able to take part in the celebrations? That might not be appropriate for this point in time, but it's just interesting. The other thing was looking at the days. We talk about a VE Day flag. I'm just wondering, does a VJ flag exist? And if there is, there's an opportunity for us certainly to mark the 15th of August as well. Because obviously I know that we do concentrate on Europe, but obviously there was a lot of servicemen and women involved in the Faggies campaign, which obviously did continue for a bit longer and was a very long campaign as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I think that question about the flag can be answered offline and circulated to members. I think regarding do we have any veterans still from that era within this area, I think that's what the Veterans Network, maybe our comms team alongside the road could maybe assist us with that plea for stories. I think we might see people that were either directly involved in the conflict or family members that were told stories to share them, because I think it's important that we don't forget that they fought for the peace that we have today and that we hope to cling on to in this day and age as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can't see any other colleagues or officers wanted to come in, so would I be happy to note that, please? Thank you. We're moving on to item number 5, the committee delivery and improvement plan. I believe that every morning as well.
Yeah. This is the second progress report on year 2 of this plan, and was also asking committee to note the refresh plan for open year 25-26 will be brought to the next meeting. The report runs through performance overview, first in relation to the actions, list actions and some actions that are complete, highlights for the pieces of slippage and things that taken forward to the 25-26 plan, and all reports at end it details some of the key performance indicators that are currently have the question.
Thank you, Mona. Councillor McCabe.
Yes, thank you. There's obviously been a number of slippages in the area of the HRP, and we know that the sort of the external review we have previously identified the need to address these actions. Are we struggling with resources to sort of implement these actions? Is that an issue? And if it is an issue, is there a way we could potentially augment the resources for a temporary period to just make sure we're progressing with that?
Thank you. So I suppose limited resources is one aspect of the challenges we face. Also, we are reliant on some of those actions in relation to external partners, and they in turn have challenges in terms of delivering. We have some long-term absence as well, and these are the various factors in play. But we are prioritising this as best we can and acknowledge the reports to take these actions forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other members got questions? No. Are members happy to accept the recommendations? Okay, item number 6, Movement Data Protection Officer Annual Report 2024. Vicky, you'll be covering that for us?
Yes, thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to present the annual report for noting. The report can be found at Appendix 1 and provides an overview of the Council's data protection performance, together with my assessment as the Council's Data Protection Officer of the Council's compliance with data protection matters. The report sets out my assessment that, in general, there has been good data protection compliance throughout the Council, and I have highlighted a couple of areas of improvement seen over the past year within the report, including an increase in subject access request response rates from 65% to 78% and a 23% decrease in the number of data breaches. However, I've also highlighted that there is still room for improvement in our subject access request response rates, as 22% of SARs were responded to late in 2024. As indicated in the report, the ICO would like to see a compliance rate of 90% at a minimum. Again, this year, particular pressure can be seen within the HSEP, as they are bearing the brunt of the increased number and complexity of SARs being received, which evidence suggests relates to the financial redress scheme. This is putting pressure on resources within the HSEP to search for and look over requested records. The Information Governance team is working with the HSEP with a view to assisting with improving compliance. In relation to data breaches, while 23% decrease in data breaches is welcomed, most breaches are of a minor nature as a result of human error, and services should be continually reminding staff of the need to take care when dealing with people's personal data. The Information Governance team is now at full capacity, and so we can focus this year on the delivery of training to relevant staff on data protection matters. All other comments and assessments are highlighted in the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Vicky. Just before I open up to Bridget, I think it was a very balanced report, and I think that you've done really well in highlighting where we've improved and being very pragmatic throughout it with where our challenges are and where we need to do better. I can see I've got a question from Councillor Brooks and Councillor McCabe. Was Stephen first, Councillor McCabe?
Well, I'm happy to feel.
Thanks very much. I just wonder if there's any guidance. AI is of increased use within society, and I'm assuming that within council. I'm not aware of any guidance I've received as an elected member, or whether officers have received employees of AI, personal information AI shared. We don't know where, so personal information shared through AI, I'm not sure where it goes. So the third party advice I have is of such, but I'll just be interested to know whether I've received advice from officers as an elected member.
Okay, I know generally from my perspective I don't put any sensitive information into any form of AI because you can't guarantee the security of it. But do we have an officer that can come in on
I
that?
can certainly
Yep.
make him. Thank you, convener. Yes, it's something that we're well aware of. We're looking into policy, both from a data protection point of view, but also from a usage point of view, to make sure that officers and elected members know the limitations of AI, also know the opportunities that it presents, but are very mindful of the risks associated. So we are looking into it. It's something that we'll bring before members at a later date. I'm not sure if Vicky's got anything to add from a data protection point of view.
Nothing to add, just that there is a paragraph in the report regarding AI and just reminding services and that they should be contacting the information governance team if they're thinking of using any technology that makes use of AI, so that we can identify, assess and control its use.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. Thanks, Lindsay. Is that
Yes,
okay?
thank you.
Councillor McCabe?
Thanks, Convener. I agree with your comments in terms of the balance of the report, but I suppose we are being challenged by the Information Commissioner to improve our performance in terms of public access requests, and 78.26%, with a minimum of 90% expected. So again, just asking officers in terms of their view and the capacity to move closer towards that target by this time next year, it's been reported.
So I think, as Vicky alluded to, our capacity issues have been resolved. So the information governance team is now up to full complement. So we're hopeful that that will then translate into an improvement, so that there clearly has been an improvement recently. We want to continue along that trend so that we can get to as good performance as we can with the full team in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our members happy to accept the report and the recommendations.
Yes.
Thank you. So item number 7 is the capital strategy 535 improving management strategy statement and annual risk strategy.
Thank you, Convener. This is the annual update to committee of the Treasury and Capital Strategies, both of which require to be approved by the full council. The capital strategy continues to clearly set out the gap between the externally generated and received resources and the levels of expenditure required in the medium term to maintain our asset base. This has linkages to the asset reviews, which are being considered by the programme board in coming months. The Treasury strategy in Appendix 2 contains prudential indicators for the next 3 years, which puts limits on the amount the Chief Financial Officer has to borrow, the level of external debt repayment periods and investments for over 12 months. There remains considerable volatility around global economics, and as such, regular reporting to committee and review by committee should continue in order to track material changes to the reported figures, given the scale of the council's borrowing and investment requirements. And for the last time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so Emma's got any burning questions for Alan? Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, this will be my final opportunity after I don't know how many years to ask Alan questions. I mean, obviously in terms of capital, Alan has set out and fairly stark terms the challenges that we face, and obviously clearly is important that we do address those challenges and go burying our heads in the sand. The reality is, as it stands, the financial position we're going to face over the coming years is going to be extremely challenging. I suppose just in terms of looking at treasury management strategy, do you foresee any, I suppose, opportunities over the coming years that might assist us in facing those challenges?
Through you, Convener, I think the opportunities around Treasury are less now than they were a number of years ago. During the COVID period, the Scottish Government implemented fiscal flexibilities that allowed the council to do what we did with our PPP debt, which gave a one-off saving of 14 million, a recurring saving of 1.6 million pounds a year. Before then, we could retrospectively adjust our repayment period of loan charges and right at the death last year, because the shutters came down on that one in April 24. We extended the write-off period for our schools to 45 years, and that generated a one-off sum of 3.75 million in recurring saving. You can't do those things anymore. And if I'm picking up anything, I think it is being informed from what's happened in a small number of councils down in England, where they've got themselves into a significant over-borrowing position, where they've entered into commercial transactions that have in some cases bankrupted those councils, and I think the BBC did a useful article on it last week. The Scottish Government officials are certainly taking a look at whether councils need to be even more prudent with their treasury in terms of what we can borrow for, how long we repay the debt over, and whether the debt repayment is a fixed instalment and interest, or whether it's an annuity, which is what the council uses. We use an annuity in tandem with any other council in Scotland. So I'm afraid, maybe unsurprisingly, I can't hold out a lot of hope that Treasury is going to help significantly. The one thing that is important is that we look after what we've got and continue to review and report and take decisions in what we've got in a prudent manner. And it doesn't go off the rails, because both of us, Councillor McCabe, have been here long enough to see what's gone on, whether it's Icelandic banks or BCCI, etc., that we don't want to have a return to anything like those days. But our Treasury is in a strong position. We've got an experienced team dealing with it. And I think the general expectation is that interest rates are going to reduce in the medium term. So overall, our costs will go down, but they will go down marginally because we've had a lot of that in. But that helps.
That's helpful, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Curley?
Yeah, probably maybe just my comment maybe touched upon what just Alan said last there about the interest rates going down in the medium term. When I look at page 100 and the long-term loans fund projections based on the capital strategy, obviously you see that they're over, without assuming any more additional borrowing, if we assume that we start paying off our debts, etc. But the actual assumed interest rates starts to go up. It dips down and then starts to go up. I was just wondering if you could give a bit of commentary on that. Obviously it says it's assuming, but does it go back to the default assumption as you go later on, or is it because the money that the debts that are left over are at a higher interest rate?
It'll be a combination of those factors. When you look at appendix, the page 100, the one thing I can guarantee you is if I was spared and came back in 2044, 45, the council will not have £82 million worth of debt. I suspect the council's debt will be near 300 million by then. And that's because you cannot only spend what the Scottish Government is giving you in capital grant. You're already spending £3 and a bit million a year more than what the Scottish Government gives you in capital grant, but we're using one-off reserves to do that. We need to find another way of dealing with that, and that's through prudential borrowing. So your debt will go up year on year, but we need the plans to be agreed by members so we know how much we've got to borrow, and that ties in with the work that the programme board and the stewards good officers, which are mentioned in the CDIP that you've just noted, the best value improvement plan. Those plans are vital, and then elected members will need to take decisions about future borrowing to maintain the asset base, which will have an implication in your revenue budget. So the denominator is going down to an unrealistically low level, so as a result the interest rate goes up. And I think the more you spend in capital, the more you borrow, the lower your interest rate will be.
It's like the APR kind of thing.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing, if that helps.
Yeah.
I find it's really interesting in a sad way, but I'm sure I'll forget it very quickly.
Are you quite happy with that answer?
No, that's fine. That was just I'll leave it at that.
Are members happy to take recommendation? Oh, sorry, Councillor Rees.
Alan, I know we're continuing to use it. We got borrowing, I think 2031 the report says. Borrowing for the capital programme, what would your advice be in the short term and the long term?
I think I've been consistent over recent years in saying that the gap that there is between what we add in capital grant from Scottish Government and what we generate from receipts and what we need to spend on an annual basis is anything between 3 and 4 million. And that's before doing any standalone projects. That's just with the normal roads investment, schools investment, property investment, ICT, aids and adaptations, and parks, etc. So if you want to do any specific projects, and they always come up, you would need to fund that over and above that. My one option, rather than my advice, because it's for elected to take this soon, one option that I know some councils have done is they've earmarked part of the annual council tax increase for potential borrowing. Right? And so, use it just as an example, something realistic. If 0.5% of the council tax increase, which would generate now after this year's about £190,000, if that was used for potential borrowing, you would be able to potentially borrow an extra £3.5 million a year. That would close that gap, and it's 0.5%. But it just means every year council tax is 0.5% higher, but it's funding this. And that's maybe something going forward that elected members want to consider. We've built in £100,000 a year in as a budget pressure up to 2030, but after that, and it may be that you maybe want to consider how you would increase your capital investment, because it is not sustainable. And in all fairness to the Scottish Government, their capital resources are not going to increase. They've got big infrastructure projects that need to be funded, and their capital resources, based on the OBR and the Scottish Fiscal Commission, are scheduled to go down. So if anything, council's capital is going to get squeezed going forward. So I think we need to solve our own problems here. One option is that, because we do not have a lot of assets we can sell as a local authority. And so we need to generate through potential borrowing, and we need to generate the funding borrowing probably through council tax.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add a supplementary on that? Hypothetically, if we were to do potential borrowing with a set percentage or even 0.5% of council tax, what happens if we get faced with a freezer cap? So if we link our borrowing to that, let's say it is 0.5%, and then the Scottish Government said that we must freeze our council tax, so suffer consequences, are we then just setting ourselves up to that detrimental impact that we're going to get?
I think, again, to be fair to the Scottish Government, each time they've frozen council tax, they've given the council some extra money.
Okay.
Whether that extra money is fully compensated for what the council would have done had it frozen council tax is a second debate, but you would get extra money. And then it began to elected members whether they would use some of that for the potential borrowing. But we're talking about something less than £2,000 a year on a £250 million budget. So it's not the biggest issue that this council will face financially, but it does allow the capital assets to be better maintained and give some sustainability.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got a last bit of advice out of there. Are members happy to accept the recommendation? And apologies again, Councillor. Moving on to item number 8, the morning is going to take us through the voluntary performance and redeployment arrangements. That's my twister.
Thank you, Rowena. In order to attract interest in voluntary service and positive border experience, the Council will temporary enhancements to voluntary service redeployment at the February 2024. These were made only in relation to employees displaced as a result of the 24-26 budget. We are therefore confirming these will be available up to the employee savings realised up to the 1st of March 2026, and thereafter the standard policy will apply. Both the enhanced policy and standard policy are referenced in the report. And also within the exempt appendix, this report gives information on the release of 50 employees under the Council's voluntary service scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mona? Councillor?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we did this for a reason. I'm presuming there's nothing stopping us at some point in the future deciding we want to temporarily the package for the same reasons.
Thank you, Rita. Certainly, in principle, I would look to my finance colleagues in terms of the affordability of that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, there's nothing to stop the council agreeing to it, but one of the limits will be how much money the council sets aside in reserves to release people. And not surprisingly, the average cost of release and the average payback has been more expensive this year because it's been a more generous release that's gone on, and based on the money that is in the earmarked reserve, as it remains in the earmarked reserve, which I think is under £2.5 million, you would probably be able to release about 1.3, 1.4 million pounds worth of salaries. That sounds a lot of money, but over the next 2 years, the estimated funding gap is 16 million, 60% of your costs are employee costs. So, you know, unless there's a completely disproportionate amount of the budget gap is posed by other means, then the odds are you have to release more than £1.5 million worth of employee costs if that funding gap, and it's a big if that funding gap comes to fruition. But it is something members could consider and could allocate more money to the voluntary severance earmarked reserve rather than some of the other things that are just really good.
Okay. And members, if there are any questions about the private appendix, that can be answered after the public session concludes today. Are members content to approve paper?
Yes.
Item number 9, the Quality Monitoring Report 2025. Good morning.
The Equality Act 2021 requires the Council to publish quality outcomes every 4 years. The last date was made in 2021, and therefore we are proposing outcomes for delivery in 2025 onwards. And legislation also requires a ministry report to be published every 2 years. Last one, 2023, so again, an updated version of 2025. The report gives detail of our progress against our 21-25 equality outcomes. Appendix 2 gives quite a lot of detail in terms of the breakdown of our employee profile, and we've tried to pull out paragraph 3.9 some of the key themes highlighted within that. It then goes on to talk about proposed equality outcomes for 25-29. And once you've read our limited action plan to develop the oversight of corporate equality.
Thank you. And if you've got any questions for Lorna on this? Oh,
Thanks, convener. Right, I'm not going to go anywhere near the nose and the null blanks. I've been there before in education communities, but I just wanted to ask, the religion isn't noted for disciplinary action, grievances and flexible working, and I just wondered why that is. I mean, it seems to be, you know, in most aspects, but not those, and I just wondered if that was deliberate or it's not collected for those.
Is that page number?
No. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm on page, let's see, 162, 163. Yeah, just there. It just struck me that there was a table that wasn't there that we had for other aspects. And as I say, I'm not going anywhere near the null blanks again. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. So certainly it is information that's there in the background. It's not information that we are required to report on in this context. And a lot of the numbers are so low that actually the tables probably don't tell you much. So.
Okay, thanks very much, Marina.
Just before bringing Councillor Brennan, I raised myself at conveners at the pre-agenda around the age-based pay gap and how that's not part of it. So am I correct to think that that's not a statutory requirement, but from my perspective, it's quite helpful to understand, like for like, if you've got two people that are in a role, one might be 26, one might be 56, but they've both got 5 years experience in a role, they've moved over, they've done a role once. I would be quite keen if we can get that information without putting too much resource strain to be able to understand our age-based pay gap, if it is one, just because I know that people say life experience and things like that, but there's some things that are technical experience.
So just picking up Councillor McKay's point earlier that actually the HR team are trying to implement a new HR system and they've got 3 active divisions, and I know that may well be interesting, but actually I don't think that they should be focusing on that. I think they should be focusing on the implementation of the new HR system rather than trying to deconfigure their life together.
I'm quite happy that I'm happy with this well in the future bringing that up. Just the way of us doing that, because I'm quite intrigued by it. Councillor Brennan.
Thanks very much, convener. Thanks very much, Mona, for that report. I'm just looking at the outcomes 1 to 5, and they look sound to me. And I know you've done work on deciding those. I'm just thinking, you mentioned there's going to be an action plan through corporate comms. I'm just thinking it's just particularly, I suppose, in terms, and we'll maybe see that action plan and see reports on it through this committee. In terms of outcome 1 about increasing the participation of disabled, impaired and underrepresented voices, I think it always looks like that work is being done across Inverclyde, or people are really striving for that through, you know, education, consultations, CLD work, community councils, TARAs, Your Voice. It looks like there are very, very often sort of consultations, surveys, meetings. I'm just thinking, but obviously we're realising that we're still not quite capturing that. Is it quite challenging to sort of map out all the work that's been done there? Because I think sometimes when we see, oh, you know, like for example, in a survey, 24 people responded, not one here, but actually there's probably sometimes a lot more work going on around Inverclyde to capture those voices. But I'm just thinking, how do you get started with that? Or yeah, thanks, Lorna.
Yeah, that's thank you to the Commissioner. I suppose we're calling them work program as well. So yes, in terms of that outcome, increased participation, self-employed, underrepresented voices in decision-making processes. I would acknowledge there's a wealth of activity that goes on in the in relation to that. Obviously, not all of it's led by the council, you know, in terms of other alliance partners are strongly involved in that in the retail sector as well. So it's challenging to capture all that in action plan. My opinion is that going forward, the corporate quality group will oversight this, where we could add value, I suppose, as a collective relation to them.
Yeah, please.
Do yourself, just to come in to add tomorrow. So the HSCP, a number of years ago, maybe about 4, because I was the chief officer, did do some mapping about voices that were less heard, so people who misuse substances, maybe more vulnerable children. And there's certainly, that should link into their strategic plan and the strategic needs assessment. So there are some opportunities, I think, there will be information there that is readily available. Perhaps we haven't pulled it together. And I wonder if Morland could take that, ask maybe community plans to see if we can maybe all collect that information and see if we can put it in something that's easily understood, even if it's just a list of all the information and all the groups that people are being consulted with.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brennan. Councillor Curley.
Thank you. You know, it's just on the, I think page 149 maybe gives an example, and I'm not 4.5 leaver sexual orientation. It's just because I'm looking at the 2024 and I'm counting out the percentages, and I know there's no blankets given as less than 5, so dash. It's just because a number of our leaders do not fill in the survey, so we never get that full 100%. Yeah. So I suppose from our perspective, there's a little bit less in there. But obviously, if you get people applying, they generally do fill in the surveys. That's fine. That confirms that. Thank you.
Members happy to accept the recommendation?
Yes.
Move on to item number 10, the Port Glasgow 250 commemoration update. With that, I believe you are going to talk us through this report.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Port Glasgow 250 anniversary celebrations, and the full extent of the proposals are in section 4. So we did carry out a public consultation. We looked at the types of events people wanted. So as a result, we're looking at music commissions, floral displays, school art, an extended Comet Festival. The sea shanty didn't go down so well. Nobody wanted a sea shanty. So we are extending the Comet Festival, and we are also have a fringe involving the 10K, and Praise in the Park. And 4.6 outlines some of the other events that are happening around Port Glasgow that we've linked into the PG 250 events. Happy to take any questions.
That's okay.
Yeah, I have to declare an interest. I'm a true Portonian, having been born in Glasgow, like most Portonians, probably born in Greenock or Paisley. I was just going to ask in terms of 4.9 regard to Glasgow City Council's commemoration, how sort of far have we sort of advanced discussions with Glasgow around potentially some sort of joint events?
I'll bring Rhoda in on that because we've had discussions with them about the possibility of linking up. Rhoda?
Yes, through you, convener. Yes, we have had initial discussions with them, but nothing progressed firmly at this point in time. I think there was an option for us to do a bit of a swap in terms of kind of civic events, but we're also looking at potentially bringing some of the music activity from the city down to host a kind of satellite event, and work on that still progressing at this point in time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just like to comment that I'm really looking forward to seeing the range of celebrations. I love the fact that we've got stuff that is cultural, whether it be running all the way through Dungeons and Dragons and the castle being included and stuff. So it should be quite a good celebration. So thank you to everybody who is working hard on that for us. Is committee happy to approve what's in the paper?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, item number 11, the review of the petitions criteria. I believe that this is the voting.
Oh,
Peter, I believe you're taking us through that, sorry.
So it's with you, convener. So the committee approved a policy strategy register in March 2024, with officers undertaking at that time to carry out future reviews of the various items on the register. That register includes the petitions criteria, and this report sets out a review of the same. The criteria themselves were adopted in 2015 and are included in Appendix 1. A breakdown of the component parts of those criteria with officer analysis and comments is included at Appendix 2. With apologies to the committee, can I point out a typographical error at para 3.7, where the first bullet point states 4 were published but did attract sufficient signatures to proceed to committee. That should in fact read did not attract sufficient signatures to proceed to committee. Following that review, officers are not recommending any changes at this time, and the report seeks committee's approval of that recommendation. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, can't see any questions in the room. Is Smith happy to approve the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 12, this is the beginning of our policy update section, or continuing it rather. So it's the retention disposal policy update, and that's for Kevin to do that.
Thank you, convener. The purpose of this report is to present to committee an updated version of the Council's records retention and disposal policy for approval. This policy sets out the Council's approach to keeping and disposing of the information it holds and ensure good records management and compliance with.
Sorry, Becky, you're breaking up there. Can you start your introduction again, please?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry.
Thanks, convener. That's okay. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can.
So the to committee an updated version of the Council's records retention and disposal policy sets out the Council's approach to keeping and disposing of the information it holds and helps to ensure good records management and compliance with business requirements and legal obligations. The policy has been updated to reflect the Council's new policy template, and as stated at paragraph 4.1 of the report, the most substantive change to the policy is the separation of the bulky retention schedule from the policy to make everything a bit more user-friendly. A table summarising the proposed changes to the policy can be found at 1. The revised policy is at Appendix 2, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Becky. I just want to say first of all, I love Appendix 7, I love the flow chart. I'm sure that many people will use that. Colleagues, McKay?
Yeah, no question on this specific policy point. I'm happy that this is a relatively routine update of policy. And it is important that we keep to the policy review schedule, right? I suppose it's just a question to the Chief Executive before she departs to us just now. Is she comfortable with the progress that's been made in these policy reviews? Because obviously there are a substantial number of policies that we're looking to review and update.
Through convener, so I can confirm by June that all the policies will have been updated as per the audit action. So we're well on track in relation to that. There's a couple to come in the June time, and then they'll all be complete.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. I think that all the round here are very aware that we have had quite a few policies in the committee that we've had within this schedule here. So we do appreciate all the work done on that, because although sometimes policies haven't been amended greatly, that is important that we continue to review those to make sure that the purpose. So thank you for that. Are members happy to approve the recommendations?
Agreed.
Moving on to item number 15, that's the unacceptable actions policy update, and that's going to yourself at the end of the day.
Thank you, convener. So the purpose of this report is to present a actions policy for approval by committee. A summary of the proposed changes to the policy, which are based on experience in applying the policy over the past 10 years, is set out at paragraph 5 and appendix 1, with the updated policy at appendix 2, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I'll say just before bringing any of my colleagues, I think this policy is really important. I think most, if not all of us as elected members have received unwelcomed communications over the years that we've been in the council. I know that some officers have been impacted as well, so thank you for bringing this to us today. Does anybody have any questions for Vicky? No, is everybody happy to accept the recommendations? Oh, apologies, Councillor Law has popped up her hand. Councillor Law, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, thanks, Natasha. I just wanted to clarify, because some of the sort of aggressive behaviour and abusive behaviour that's listed includes things like being rude, using offensive language, or making derogatory remarks. So I just wanted to clarify, basically, because obviously people can swear with it and use swear words without it being abusive. And would it constitute someone saying, or potentially online, someone telling us we're doing a really terrible job or voicing strong opposition to something? Could they be accused of making derogatory remarks? And while I appreciate it's attempting to keep us all safe in the current climate, I think it's really important, and I agree with Natasha's statement there. I think some of the criticisms that we face is not abusive, so how do we distinguish between the two?
Okay, thank you, Kirsty. Just before I bring in, I think I might bring Vicky back in if that's possible, but just before that, I think once again it's about the tone and intention of what's being said to us. I think very seldom is there a requirement to actually use offensive language. I think it's usually born out of frustration, or maybe not feeling heard, that most people use that sort of language. So I think generally speaking from our perspective, there's no need to use crude or crass language, but I will bring Vicky in because I can appreciate the why you asked that question, Councillor Law.
Thank you, convener. Depends if it's a continued course of action as well. If elected members have any issues and feel as if there is a course of action that is showing itself in aggressive and abusive behaviour, then I would recommend that elected members come and speak to Lindsay or myself, and we can have a look at the unacceptable actions policy kicks in there. This policy tends to deal with kind of frequent flyers, as I call them, like people who are kind of engaging in a course of behaviour that's causing issues to officers and elected members.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. And Lindsay, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, convener. I think it's worth noting that it's really difficult to pin these things down. So to say this is what abusive behaviour is, or this is what aggressive behaviour is, because to an extent these things can be subjective. So I think it's what's written in here is guidance. It's headlines of things that you might want to come and speak to officers about. But it is something that would show a campaign or some kind of ongoing issue. A one-off incident of someone using a rude word, I don't think would constitute an unacceptable action. But it's when it becomes a chain of things, or where it becomes part of something that's more concerning. But we can't, there's no one size fits all. Each incident would have to be looked at in its own merits.
Councillor Law, are you?
Yeah.
Are you happy with that? Sorry, you cut off there.
Yeah, happy, thank you.
Thank you. Are members content to agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, that is the end of the public section of this meeting. We'll now move into private session for the appendix. So can I just confirm that the recording is stopped? Excellent. Thank you, Councillor.
That's fine.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on the appendix to agenda item 8? I thought it was launch sentence. Okay, well, thank you for listening today and have a good day.
Hello.